Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the October 13th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips looking for horses that might have encountered adversity in their prior starts and could be worth betting back when they run in the future. This week, we've got three races from this past week at Belmont Park. Let's begin with a race from last Thursday's card, October 7th. It was the final race of that day, race 9. It's a maiden claiming 40,000 for New York breds, going a mile on the turf. Let's break these runners from the gate, and you're going to notice the number 2, Raving, breaks very slowly. She comes out of the gate a good 3 lengths behind the rest of the field. Now, she is a first-time starter in this race, going up for Tom Bush, daughter of California Chrome, but even though she didn't take any money in this race, she is a horse that has quite a nice turf pedigree. Her dam was a decent turf horse, and she's actually produced this one's half-sibling, Conquest Hard Candy, who is a stakes-level turf horse. But check out this first-time starter Raving at the back of the pack now, that number 2. You can see she's kind of carrying her head very high, throwing her head about a little bit as she leaves the screen there. And Jose Lezcano, her rider, is just really fighting her for about the first half mile of this race. She's off the screen right now, but you could see that she was kind of throwing her head about in the first quarter mile, and she's going to come back into the picture right about here. And even now, she's kind of trying to run up inside of this gray horse, and Jose is just having a really tough time controlling her. She's not obeying his instructions. She's trying to do too much, even though she's at the back of the pack. Now, do you know if this is a race that features a pretty quick pace? The horse on the lead here, Frosted Bourbon, that gray horse, she kind of runs off a little bit, and the fractions are pretty fast. But even though Raving gets a strong pace to close into, and she does make some progress at the end, I think she's really compromised by these antics in the early going here. And only right here does she start to settle down under Jose Lezcano. And you're going to see right here at the quarter pole, he makes a pretty significant move to try to angle out. He actually bumps another horse pretty hard at about the quarter pole there. That made the other horse lose a bit more momentum than Raving did. But Raving does pick up some pieces here, gets up to 5th by the end of this race. I just think she's a horse that really needed this debut experience. Like I was saying, Tom Bush, not a rider that really has his first-time starters cranked up to win first time out, and I think she's going to benefit from this experience when she runs back next time. But she does have to get over those gate issues, because you don't want a horse to break 3 lengths behind the field when they run second time out. Let's move on to a couple of races from Saturday's card at Belmont Park, October 9th. Let's start with race 4. This is a maiden special weight for the 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And I'm actually going to highlight the eventual winner of this race, something that I don't often do, but I think that the debut winner who is victorious in this race is one that you want to follow down the line. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to focus on the number 2, ZANDON, a first-time starter for Chad Brown. Now, this horse went off at 5-1, which surprised me a little bit, because doing my work for this race when I was making the morning line, this horse had been working really well coming into his debut start. He was coming off actually a very impressive gate drill that you can watch on XBTV, where he just destroyed a stablemate that he was paired with in the morning. But for whatever reason, didn't take a whole lot of money in this race. You saw coming out of the gate, he broke towards the back of the pack with another first-time starter, about a length behind the field. But I thought Joel Rosario does a good job getting him up into position as they move around the far turn here. And now he's in the pocket in about 4th place here. And you're going to see another first-time starter range up on the outside. The field starts to get a little bit bunched, and that's because the pace is really slowing down as they come around the far turn. You're going to see the half mile go up in over 46 seconds. They're really not moving that quickly up front. And check out ZANDON on the rail in those blue silks. Rosario's trying to find a seam inside, but you could see this horse is moving his head about. He's just not really happy with the kickback being down inside. He's just uncomfortable in that position. So Rosario here has to angle him to the outside, and it briefly seems like he's been left with too much to do. But look at the way this horse lengthens his stride and reels in these 2 leaders who still had plenty left in the tank. Those 2 are pulling away from the rest of the field, but ZANDON still is able to reel them in late, and I love the way he extends his stride across the wire, finishes strongly, and if you watch on the gallop out, he opens up a big margin on the rest of this field about a furlong after the wire. So this son of Upstart really ran well in his debut for Chad Brown. Got an 80 buyer for this race, which is respectable, but he feels like one that, well, maybe he doesn't have the pedigree of a Derby horse. He's one that should appreciate a bit more ground in the future, just given the way that he ran in this race. So he's one that I would look for if he moves up into stakes company next time, as one that has a lot of potential in the Chad Brown barn. Let's finish things up with another race from Saturday's card at Belmont, October 9th. This is race 8. It's a New York bred allowance, nominators of one other than, going 6 furlongs on the turf. And the theme of this show is horses that are breaking slowly. And we're going to look at another one here as we break these horses from the gate. Check out the number 9, Uncle George. If you've watched this horse run before, you know that this is his MO. He always breaks a little bit slowly. That's just the way this horse comes out of the gate. He leaves himself with a lot to do right from the start. So not a big surprise to see him break about a length and a half behind the field, but I'm most concerned with what happens in the second half of this race, because Uncle George, he's been a frustrating horse to follow. He ran a number of times last year, and he was so impressive winning his career debut when his rider steered him out into the center of the course, and he just mowed down a field of maiden special weight rivals at the open company level with a really impressive turn of foot. Since then, it seems like his riders have struggled to know what to do with him. After he breaks slowly, they try to save ground, get him in some trouble a few times, and that's what's going to happen here as he's coming off a layup, making his first start as a 4-year-old. Irad Ortiz, it seems like he's doing the right thing right here as you see Uncle George on the inside towards the back of the pack in that red cap. But the field was pretty bunched. They're not going that quickly up front, and this race is going to be dominated on the front end. And you can see right about here, Irad has plenty of run on Uncle George, but there's just nowhere to go. And he gives him a couple taps of the whip, and Uncle George responds well, trying to come through on the inside. But right here, you see he's just totally stymied in traffic in behind a wall of horses. Can't ride this horse at all. He was building up momentum, but he just got it totally stymied in traffic. Nowhere to go at the end of this race. There's an argument he might have been best on this day, given the fact that he looked like he was loaded, about to run into a slow pace, but he wasn't able to make up that ground due to the traffic he encountered late. This was the first start off the layoff. Also his first start as a new gelding. I think he took a subtle step forward in this race. So if he gets in another performance at Belmont before the end of the meet, perhaps going 7 furlongs, I think that could be the right spot for him. Hopefully if he gets in a race with a little bit more pace and he's able to get to the outside. He's always going to be a horse that breaks slowly, has that deep closing running style. But if he does get into a race with the proper pace setup, I think he's going to run a lot better and achieve a better result than we saw last Saturday. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. Remember, if you want to follow these horses moving forward, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com. Just add these horses to a list, and you can get email notifications when they run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.